Well, are we being warned about future catalysmic events by some of the ancients and also extraterrestrials? Our guest, Paul LaViolette, will be back with him and your phone calls in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back to Coast. I'm George Norrie with our guest, Paul LaViolette. Paul, before we get rolling into phone calls, you've got a number of books. I've read 3 of them already. Where can people get them?
Okay, if you don't have a computer and would like to call 800 number, I can give that.
All right.
That's 1-800-715-9993.
Simple enough. 800-715-9993.
And then if you have a computer, I have a website that's etheric.com. That's ETHERIC.com.
Great. Can you also get these books from Amazon.com?
Some of them, not all of them. You can get Earth Under Fire and Genesis of the Cosmos. The Talk of the Galaxy, you could probably get it a little cheaper at my website. And there's other things that are at the website, like lectures, DVDs, things like that.
Briefly, with the pioneer theory, if indeed the spacecraft seem to be speeding up, what does that tell us about the universe?
Okay, well, what I was saying that there was actually a frequency shift. It's not really that there's a force on the spacecraft causing it to move towards the sun, that it's due to the photons, the maser signal, changing its frequency in the time it takes to go over to the spacecraft and come back. And they're misinterpreting the blue shift. The blue shift means that the frequency has increased. They're misinterpreting the blue shift as a force pushing the spacecraft. Now, I had told them way back in 1980 about the prediction, and that same year had estimated the approximate magnitude, what they should see. And later that prediction was published and came out in 1985. Now, in 98, they finally announced what they found, and it came out within 2 standard deviations of what I had predicted.
That's not bad.
I mean, it's sort of like, you're on the other end of the ball field and you hit the bullseye.
Have you ever been nominated for a Nobel Prize in Science?
Well, a friend of mine had said that that I should be nominated for 2, but it hasn't happened yet. Now, that came out of another discovery of the finding that the heavy planets, or the major planets, which are producing heat in their interiors, line up on the same relation as the red dwarf stars. In other words, if you plot the coordinates for each star, its mass and luminosity, you find it's on a trend, and you find the planets are in that same trend line. And it was doing those calculations that I came to make this prediction, namely that the reason the planets are generating energy in their interiors is because of this photon blue shifting effect. And I could get the magnitude from observing the heat outputs from the planets. Now, normally you would not make a connection like that. It would be totally illogical in standard theories to make that connection. But I followed it, and it turned out it confirmed the prediction.
All right, let's go to the phones, Paul, and see what our Coast listeners have in store for you. East of the Rockies, welcome to Coast. You're on the air with us. Hi there.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
Happy Wednesday. This program ought to have some historical value. It's marvelous. I'm calling from Milwaukee area, north side of Milwaukee, Glendale, Wisconsin.
Oh, sure. Very familiar with that.
WISN radio.
Yes, sir.
Get a little publicity for a station. To your knowledge, did Nikola Tesla ever, so to speak, take a break from his electrical contrivances and delve into this terrestrial type of thing, to your knowledge? I would be inclined to think he would have the intellect to do it. That might be a part of the reason why the government took his records. It might have been stuff like this on his agenda and in his records. And there probably might be a little bit too much advanced knowledge to let go to the public, and the government probably didn't want that involved to the public. So that's my idea. Curious if you had any idea about Nikola Tesla's involvement in this sort of thing.
Insight
I
there,
don't
Paul?
offhand to tell you, although I've written a bit about Tesla's work. His Tesla waves are explained in subquantum kinetics. It's another form of wave that can be produced. It's a longitudinal, as opposed to the normal photon, which is a transverse type of wave. So both are explainable in subquantum kinetics. Tesla also believed in ether, and he was against Einstein's idea of relativity, not the idea of time dilation and length foreshortening, but the idea of relative frames. He didn't ascribe to that. The idea of abandoning the ether, he was not in agreement with.
I think, Paul, also one of the reasons why all his records were confiscated after he died is, he had the knowledge of how to develop free electricity, free energy, and they didn't want anybody else to know about that. I'm convinced of that.
Also, his technology, yes, not only it's applicable to electric power production, but also to aviation, gravity control. One thing that comes out of subquantum kinetics is the prediction that electrons and protons have opposite gravity potentials, that you can create a gradient, which relates to Townsend Brown's work. And with Tesla's technique of pulsing, you can build up very large gradients in the ether that could create a very sizable force on an object.
Okay, next up, let's go to our first-time caller line. You're on the air with us. Hi there. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Seattle.
Well, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, this is Jay Widener. I was a guest on your show on April 5th.
Of last year? Earlier this year. That's right, Jay. How are you? We talked about prophecy in 2012, right?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
And you have one of my very favorite scientists.
Hi, Jay.
Dr.
Good to hear your voice.
As a matter of fact, you were on some of his credits on his videos, if I remember.
I directed and wrote his Earth Under Fire video.
Yeah, he did a fantastic job.
Nice job.
Well, thanks, Paul. You're really an amazing guy, and I'm so glad you're on Coast to Coast. And I just wanted to ask you a question here. Has any of your discoveries reinforced the ancient alchemical version of science? And what do you think of alchemy as a viable science?
The ancient Egyptians, for example, the word alchemy comes from al-kemet, which translated means the science of Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
If you study the Egyptian mythology, it's encoding a alchemic science, which is used to explain the creation of physical form. So there they were talking about an alchemic ether that's transmuting. Also, it was later, chemistry came out of alchemy. There was the attempt to look at chemical reactions with the idea that at room temperature we can have transmutation of elements, just like you would have in a nuclear reactor. And so the idea of a modern-day field of cold fusion comes out of that. Yeah. So it has very ancient origins.
Well, Jay, what do you think of his thoughts about the Hopis talking about, of course, the potential end of all of this?
Well, I think that Paul's actually right on, and I think that his work will grow in efficacy as time goes on. And I'm just so impressed with his work that I can't express it, and I'm so glad to have him on. And I'm so glad you're having John Major Jenkins on and really covering, George, the very, very important work that's going on concerning 2012, the Hopi, the Maya.
Oh, we're getting close to that date, Jay, aren't we?
Yes, we are, and it's very, very exciting. I think we're in for incredibly great changes, and I think Paul LaViolette is playing a major role in this, and I hope people are listening very closely to what he has to say.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. And you were a great guest when we had you on earlier this April. Paul, this work that you've been doing into these areas. Now, we've talked about 3 separate areas, but they all seem to overlap as well. You know, the cosmic wave that could cause incredible havoc on this planet, the pulsars probably coming from extraterrestrials, some of your work, and, of course, the genesis of the cosmos. Is there one particular area, Paul, that you like the best?
Well, it's all fascinating. It's hard really to say. I totally would get into each area when I was writing the book, and it's the kind of stuff that completely shifts your paradigm. If you start reading, for example, Genesis of the Cosmos, your whole way of viewing reality will have changed by the time you finish. I am operating an entirely different reality than most people, I guess, who are adopting what's given out through the media. It is. These are subjects that are reality shifting. If you didn't, for example, believe that there was any truth to these stories about the flood or the burning of the earth, and suddenly you see, well, here is an explanation, and it's something that's been totally ignored by astronomers and geologists. Your whole paradigm shifts when you realize these things.
Let's go to our international line, Paul. You're on Coast to Coast with us. Hi there.
Hello.
Yeah, hi. Where are you calling from?
This is British Columbia, Louise calling.
Hello, Louise. Go ahead. Paul's with you.
Yes, Paul, I wanted to know, can we personally feel these pulses that are sent to Earth as human beings? Can we feel these?
When you're talking about super waves?
Yes.
Okay, it's something that hasn't arrived yet now, and when it arrives, you'll know it. It will, like what we've been going through now is like sunny weather. Even all this concern about solar flares. The first thing you would feel, I would imagine, would be earthquakes happening simultaneously around the planet. Then would be the gamma ray burst, which, if you were outdoors, the question is how strong would it be, whether it would give you a large dose of radiation. These are things to be concerned about. That would be passing very quickly, and then would be the pushing of the cosmic dust into the solar system, and that would be a much more long-term thing because these effects last for hundreds, even thousands of years. We're talking about generations and generations of people having to go through this.
So you don't see that there are certain people here already who are aware of perhaps these messages that are being sent?
Okay, so sent, in other words, from advanced civilizations?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So you're talking more about messages, telepathic messages.
Yes, yes.
Yes, I am aware. Now, the thing is that people have gotten messages in the past, and they thought something was going to happen on a certain date, and it didn't work out. So the problem is, the person may actually be getting a message, but is it coming from a credible source? And that we don't know. If these civilizations were sending us a message, what would help us is if they said, okay, here's how you build a telescope that's able to sense superluminal signals, for example, and detect this before it gets to you, so you can see it coming, whether that's possible or not. So there is this question of track record, because in the past predictions have not panned out, but it doesn't mean we should not expect something soon.
All right, let's go to our wild card line. Welcome to Coast. You're on the air with us. Hi there. Where are you calling from?
Calling from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Paul, this is a voice you haven't heard in quite a while.
This is a voice I've heard quite a bit. It's our science advisor, Richard C. Hoagland. Hey,
Good
Richard,
evening, George.
What sparked you to call?
Well, Paul is I heard Jay call in, and obviously Jay and I have discussed Paul extensively because we discussed Paul's work, and I've known Paul for ages. I haven't talked to him in quite a while. But I would echo what Jay said. I mean, Paul is doing some extremely important work. I could have some quibbles about details, but that's not important. I do have a couple of questions I wanted to ask him.
Yeah, go ahead.
One is, I understand, Paul, that your superwave model, where the galaxy center explodes periodically and basically blasts the solar system and Earth and causes a really bad hair day for everybody living here, occurs roughly on a cycle every 26,000 years. Am I correct on that?
I see also a period of 13,000 being in there, too.
Which is the half cycle.
Right.
Okay.
We're talking about the major climate-changing events.
Right.
This is not to mention the smaller events, which wouldn't change climate.
Yep. So you're connecting those periodicities with the explosion at the center of the Milky Way, right?
Right.
Okay. Really important question. I've been dying to ask you for a while. Isn't it phenomenal that that's exactly the period and half period of the Earth's precession?
Well, I discussed that in my book.
And how do you match those?
Well, that would indicate that there's a gravitational component to this superwave.
So there's some kind of connection between the galactic center and the solar system.
Yeah, what it's doing is applying a torque to the Earth, because the axis of the Earth, when these arrive, like, for example, when the last one arrived towards the end of the Ice Age, the Earth's axis was pointed, I believe it was towards the galactic center, was leaning towards. So the Earth's equator was maximally inclined at that time. Now, if you are subjected to a tidal force due to a gravity wave coming from the galactic center at that time, it would produce a maximum torque to cause precession of the axis at that time.
Okay.
So what happens is that the precession of the Earth ends up synchronizing with that periodic pull.
Like basically pushing someone on a swing at exactly the right time.
Exactly. And so, in other words, what it means is not all of the force that's causing the precession of the axis is coming from the sun and moon.
Right.
That a major part of that is the galactic superwave.
Okay, now here's the little devil in the details. If that's true, and this wave, of course, is much vaster than the entire solar system, so it impacts all the planets, why don't all the planets have the same precessional period?
Well, do we know that well enough? Like, which planets are you talking about?
Really good data now from Mars, because we got guys sitting on the surface, spacecraft with very, careful narrowband radio receivers the DSN listens to.
Mm-hmm.
We've got spacecraft orbiting Jupiter and Saturn, and in other words, we really kind of wire the solar system. And the only place that has this incredible synchronicity seems to be the Earth, which, of course, I find really mysterious and troubling. And I have some other possible answers, but we won't get into that.
That would cause some problems for that theory.
All right, Richard, hey, thanks for that call, enterprisemission.com. Always nice to get impromptu calls from the science advisor, Richard C. Hoagland. And we'll be back with more with our guest, Paul LaViolette, and your calls, final calls, because next hour, open lines right here on Coast to Coast AM. And welcome back, Dr. Paul LaViolette, our guest, and we're going to take your phone calls. I've got open lines next hour. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Paul, right before the clock got us at the mid-break, Richard C. Hoagland, our science advisor, had called in and basically wanted to know who had the greatest interest in telling us if there was some catastrophe that periodically comes from the center of the galaxy. And he thought, of course, it was us from Mars. What do you think?
Say again. What was that he was saying?
Well, he believes that it might have been us when we were once Martians. Richard has always believed that we came from Mars in some form or fashion.
Oh, I don't know. But I wanted to comment about the what he had brought up about the gravity wave theory that I was suggesting, that Mars' pole is not in phase in the same cycle. This is the only other planet apparently we have good data in terms of actual having spacecraft landed on it. Well, one difference is that we have a large moon that Mars doesn't. The moon there is very small and doesn't really exert very large force on the planet compared to what we have here. So tidal effects are much larger on the Earth due to the moon we have. And I'm just thinking that maybe that could be the thing that's the difference, is why this effect would cause this synchronization in the case of the Earth. As to why the moon would make that difference, I can't really say right now, but it's something to think about.
You know, when we talked in the first hour about the cosmic wave, that we really won't know if and when it hits us, but do we get any kind of indication that something's going on? I mean, do we see any kind of climate change or anything that we might be able to relate directly to something like a cosmic wave?
That I don't know. We're all going through this for the first time when we finally are on the threshold of this. So we're on the learning curve, so to speak. One thing we can do is keep careful watch on the galactic center and look at the activity, what's going on there. And if things started acting up, maybe that would give us some warning. Suppose it didn't happen all at once. There was some building up of activity there, and hopefully would have enough time to have the astronomers discussing this and taking some preparation. But as to whether that will happen, don't really know.
All right, back to the phones we go. West of the Rockies, welcome to Coast. You're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hi, George. This is Cody.
Hi, Cody. Where might you be?
I'm calling from San Diego.
Ah, okay. Go ahead, Cody.
Hey, my question is, I recently found that there were 2 comets in our vicinity, in Earth's vicinity, during the tsunami last year. And my question was, if you or anyone has heard about this, I haven't heard anything in the media, and if you think that it really could have had anything to do with the tsunamis. It's actually the tsunami that happened.
Well, I don't think so. The gravitational pull of a comet would be very small to have done anything like that.
The Mach-Holtz was 0.376 light years, and the linear looks like it was 1.156, and looks like that was down towards the southern pole. And the Mach-Holtz, it looks like it's directly being shot out from the Orion constellation.
But you do believe it was a gamma burst that had something to do with it, Paul, right?
Yeah, it's just the synchronicity. 2 of the largest events in their class in the last 30 years or so to have occurred and to be so close in time. Either the universe is playing tricks on us, or there must be some connection.
Let's go east of the Rockies. You're on the air with us. Hi there.
Hi, my name's Linda. I'm from Omaha.
Uh-huh.
I'm so happy to talk to you. I listen to you every night. I just love your show.
Thank you, Linda.
and I was when I was sitting on here, I had two quick questions for Paul, because while I was sitting here, I just thought of one that kind of pertained to what was happening with these signals, and I wondered if he might think this might have something to do with it. Supposedly, Thoth, in his Emerald Tablet, said that at some time there would be a great danger that had come to the Earth before from deep in space, and that he actually put this spaceship that he had from Atlantis, that the race had come here, like the Anunnakians had come here in, and they had buried it beneath the Sphinx. And he said that the spaceship that we could use to go and stop whatever this danger was. And I actually had a friend who worked on the what was that project that the Philadelphia experiment.
Back in the 40s.
And he said that that was true, that they had found a spaceship underneath the Sphinx.
Oh, that's an interesting find, if that's possible. Does he have any pictures?
I don't know. You know, he's got some really good stories about some projects that went on, and knowing that the government actually had like a Stargate that actually went to the moon, and he said on the moon there's actually a bench that Noah had carved his name into the bench when he was a child. That I guess it was Inke or Inlay or one of them had taken him up to the up there to this star base they had, or this space they had up there. And I guess being a kid, he was sitting up there on the bench, and he put his initials in it.
Well, Paul, let me ask you, of course, we talked about, and Linda, thanks for your call, the Hopis and, the possibilities that they have sketches of extraterrestrials. Do you believe that this planet's been visited in the past?
Yes. One thing, for example, the Pulsar message, they're calling attention to certain of our constellation stars. And so they would have to have knowledge of our constellation lore. For example, the Sagitta, the pointer star of the point of the arrow, the Sagitta arrow, that's the one that's closest to the one radiant point, is being marked by the second fastest pulsar. And with a certain geometrical relationship, there's like a right angle triangle formed. It's the diagram on the website shows this. And so when you see this calling attention to certain things that are in our own lore, you begin to wonder either they learned it from us or maybe they taught us this constellation lore, and it was handed down. Either that or these are incredible coincidences.
Well, and I don't believe in coincidences, Paul.
For example, the zodiac, astrological zodiac, Leo and Aquarius constellations, their astrology lore says, for example, that Leo is the warm sign and Aquarius the cool sign. And this is marking out the dipole anisotropy of the 3-degree Kelvin radiation field. To observe that, because that's microwave radiation in space, we had to have ability to fly above the atmosphere, and we had very sophisticated microwave receiving equipment and so on. So how did if this was just the ancients, how did they know to put those characterizations on those signs? And not only that, they actually mapped out the temperature gradient by using a symbol system of planet assignments, for example. And also they assign certain astrological signs to body parts. The ones closer to Leo are towards the heart, the area of warmer temperature in the body. And as you go towards Pisces and Aquarius, you go to the feet, you're going down in body temperature.
Somebody somewhere wants to save this planet. Why?
Well, they see that we're less advanced, and they want to give us a hand to get over the hurdle. I think this is the big test of a civilization. If you can make it through the superwave to defend your planet and not go into a dark ages afterwards, then you have passed the test. You're able to advance and be part of the galactic club, so to speak. There may be, I mean, we're speculating here, but maybe there is a prime directive that they're not to interfere, that they can give hints, they can show us...
Send pulsars, but they can't directly...
Right, they can show us these amazing things like spelling out E equals MC squared. I mean, it's almost really equivalent to that. I mean, what you're seeing with a pulsar is as if you wrote with one of these stunt airplanes in the sky.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like flashing. There's like a flashing neon sign is the way to put it. And if we can't get our act together when they've been so explicit to point this out, not only with pulsars, but with the lores that have been passed down, carefully preserved through the oral traditions, and even in spiritual traditions. I mean, every religion is passing down about these cataclysms. It's considered so important that we're supposed to be informed about this, to be prepared.
What if they were time travelers, Paul, and somehow they know what's going to happen, and they're warning us, maybe through these pulsars, and I wish we would decode them?
And my own personal view is that it's possible to go into the future, like if you're traveling near the speed of light.
Right.
But if you're talking about time travel to the past, I don't believe it's possible to go into the past from as physical beings. We can pass to other dimensions. That's what happens when we die. Our soul passes out of the physical. But to actually see, I believe this is like a movie that's running. It's sort of like the flux, the ether flux. It's a universal, unidirectional flux that's going on, and it's difficult. You can't just reverse that, and go back. Unless it would be like a Matrix type of scenario where it was all a computer program that you could just rewind. But I don't think that's the way it works.
No, I wish it were that easy. West of the Rockies, you're on Coast to Coast with us. Hi there. Hello? Nope, you're gone. Let's go east of the Rockies. Welcome to the show. Hi there.
Hi, this is Jean.
Hi,
I'm
Jean.
in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried for a very long time to call you. I have a 4-line poem that I want to read you that's been given to me in 2000 by whom I don't know, but I know that it's important for the native people in this country. It's called Message. Modern mankind, spiritually blind, ant and bee no more than thee. Look about, earth will shout. Native peoples hold the key.
It's very, very good.
But my question is, along with this, there's been a lot of stuff, that I've come upon, how I don't know, but it's as if to me, the earth is like not the earth, but the whole universe is like a gigantic, living, very spiritual thing. And what we see going away is it's simply growing, like cells grow, and everything that we see out there is simply a component of that enormous, body that is a large spiritual thing.
Yes, even the ether.
Exactly.
And you can view the ether as being sacred, and that's the way the ancients viewed it. Yes. Even to the point of possibly being conscious, or some form of consciousness at that level.
Thanks for being on the program, Gene. First-time caller line, you're on with Paul LaViolette on Coast to Coast. Hi there.
Yes, hello.
Yeah,
this is
go ahead.
Mike from Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like Dr. Paul to clear up an inconsistency that I see. There's this destructive wave that comes out every maybe 26,000 years from the center of the galaxy, right?
Yeah.
Now, I assume it's a spherical wave. It's not directed at Earth.
Right.
Right, okay. And I believe you said in some circumstances, you think it's caused supernova. Earth has caught on fire. Is 26 now? If this goes out through the entire galaxy, how do any extrasolar civilizations develop enough to be able to manipulate neutron stars?
Okay, as far as the Earth catching on fire, that's not due directly to the cosmic rays, but to the sun becoming activated. Now, the reason why we're having a rough time right now is that there's a lot of cosmic dust in the vicinity of the sun. There was a time where we didn't have ice ages, which indicates that the hazards were not as severe as they are now. In other words, think of us that we're currently passing through a dirty part of the galaxy. So when these super waves arrive, you get this climatic change, the sun becoming extremely aggravated and doing coronal mass ejection. Now, the waves would be much more severe closer to the galactic center. Suppose now that civilizations which were advanced, which actually set these sites up, had the ability to travel at faster than the speed of light. They would have the ability to actually go through a superwave without it affecting them and go onto the other side. In other words, when they come out of subspace or whatever you want to call it, because you'd have to have your ship partially dematerialized to travel superluminally.
Sure.
I hope this isn't going over people's heads. There is a way to do this. And according to subquantum kinetics, you raise the gravity potential. When you raise gravity potential, objects begin to dematerialize. Not entirely. You can have it so it's just a bunch of point masses without the waves in between, but it looks invisible. That would minimally interact with dust particles and so on that you would be going through. You'd be able to then rematerialize once you got through this.
And that's probably the way they do it. Paul, your 3 hours were up. I want to thank you for being on the program. We started you earlier, and it's a little different. It worked out. His toll-free number, by the way, if you're interested in his books that we've been talking about tonight, 800-715-9993. His website, linked up at coasttocoastam.com. I'll be back in a moment with open lines. I'll tell you a little bit about a death story when we come back.